Good evening and welcome to tonight's March 8, 2023 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm very pleased to have you here with us, whether you're here in person or whether you're watching us remotely. In just a minute, we will begin the open forum portion of our meeting. That's an opportunity for members of the public to share their comments, their questions, their concerns with the town board. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. But if you're watching us on our YouTube channel or the cable access channel, you'll have to log into the meeting through Zoom in order to speak during the open forum or the public hearing that comes later on in the agenda. There are detailed instructions for doing so on the town webpage. That webpage is www.townofbrighton.org. We do continue to make our town board meetings accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community with our ASL interpreters, Allie and Heather tonight. Thank you very much. And as a reminder, whether you're here in the room or watching us remotely, all of the materials that we're going to be reviewing in making our decisions tonight are available on the town's webpage, or if you're here in the room, on the back table. Again, that, of course, the webpage is townofbrighton.org. We'll start the meeting with the pledge. I'll ask Councilmember DePonzio to lead us, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get to the open forum, we do have a couple of proclamations tonight, a couple of important proclamations. The first is to recognize not only Women's History Month, which is observed each year during the month of March, but also March 8th of each year is celebrated as International Women's Day, celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women, as well as a day for a call to action for accelerating gender parity in all aspects of our life. The town has issued a proclamation honoring International Women's Day, and I am thrilled that we have a special guest here tonight to accept this proclamation. Rochester can be proud to be the home of Susan B. Anthony, but Brighton can be very proud to be the home of Barbara Blaisdell, who brings Miss Anthony to life to inspire today's generation. Men and women, boys and girls, people of all who identify themselves. Miss Anthony and Barbara Blaisdell is a modern day role model. So I am very pleased to invite Miss Anthony to join me at the podium, if you would.
Good evening, sir.
I will now read the proclamation, and then Miss Anthony, in her inimitable way, will have an opportunity to say a few words. But whereas the early 1900s was a time of great expansion and turbulence in an industrialized world that saw booming population growth and the rise of radical ideologies, whereas International Women's Day was created in 1911 to recognize the great struggle and strides that women have made in securing rights, as well as the continued push around the world for pay equality, freedom from violence, the right to an education, and the power of self-determination, so women and girls everywhere can chart their own futures and have control over their own bodies. And whereas the theme of this year's International Women's Day is #EmbraceEquity, a message that trailblazers like Susan B. Anthony would applaud as her life's work gained American women the right to vote and continues to inspire generations of women to stand up, speak out, and guide our nation towards legal, economic, and social equity. Whereas March is also Women's History Month, and we embrace Susan B. Anthony for her hard-won achievements and remind ourselves that we must continue to expand access to equity, protect constitutional rights from erosion and revocation, and share the living history of the women's rights movement. And whereas tonight we honor Brightonian Barbara Blaisdell for her role in advancing and embracing equity by donning the famous red shawl, the long black dress, and strapping a bonnet atop her head to embody the famous radical activist we proudly claim as our own Susan B. Anthony, to help educate people about the suffragist movement and Miss Anthony's critical role in advancing the rights of women. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, on behalf of the members of our town council, and I would note that Council Member Robin Wilt is out of town tonight, but I believe she is, she may later be joining us on Zoom, but in any event, she's at a conference this evening. We do hereby recognize March 8th, 2023 as International Women's Day and celebrate March as Women's History Month in the town of Brighton. And we urge all residents to continue to work towards women's equality as one step towards equal and equitable treatment for all. And be it further proclaimed that we thank Barbara Blaisdell for 32 years of transforming into Susan B. Anthony to teach Miss Anthony's legacy to children and adults in a most creative, approachable, and engaging way. And this proclamation is signed this 8th day of March in the year 2023. It gives me great pleasure. We're probably 112 years late in presenting this proclamation to you, Miss Anthony. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, sir.
And I think we'll do a poll. Thank you, and the podium is yours.
Much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, ladies and gentlepersons. It's a much more pleasant venue than my usual spot over at Mount Hope Cemetery. You know, as you perfectly well know, last month, February, was Black History Month, and Mr. Douglas and I, we were friends and colleagues in life, and now we visit each other over the berm whenever we can over there on Mount Hope. It's a wonderful thing to be recognized, but of course the issue is not Susan B. Anthony or her friend Barbara Blaisdell, but rather helping the National Susan B. Anthony Museum and House here in our city on Madison Street, and all of the history of all the women that worked with myself, Mrs. Stanton, Mrs. Mott, and many others. And it's amazing to me to come back in spirit in 2023 and discover that there is still yet so much to be done. And that I put upon all of you and all of you. It's something that Mrs. Stanton and I thought we would live long enough to see the vote. We did not, but we knew it would come, and it has. But I am still disappointed that we have not had a female president, nor have we enough females in any of the elected groups. But I know that that's being worked on, and that's certainly important. I feel as though coming back in spirit is important, because sometimes the public does not recognize all that the women of the past, and some good men, did to get us as far as we did get. But there is yet much to be done, and I certainly hope all of you will work towards that. Pay equity was something that I wrote about in my newspaper, The Revolution. And here we are all these many years, and it still is not the case. I could go on forever. I will not. But I thank you very much for this, and I hope if there are any amongst you who have not yet visited the Anthony House and Museum, I encourage you to do so. It is quite astonishing to find out the true history and to see where my family and I resided for part of my life, most of their life. You know, my father's farm was originally over near the airport once we moved here from Massachusetts. But once my father passed away, he was a Quaker. My mother was originally a Baptist, but she became a Quaker. And the family purchased the house on Madison Street. I was hardly ever there because I spent over 50 years traveling back and forth across this great country and over in Europe as well, pushing for women's rights. And it's wonderful to be able to come back there and to see that people are recognizing the hard work that we did. But it's amazing to me that we still have so far to go after all these years. So I encourage you all to encourage your children and your nieces and nephews and every other young person you know to become aware of the history and to get involved in making their own history. And as I said in my last speech in Baltimore, failure is impossible. Thank you very much.
The Susan B. Anthony House is an extraordinary place, and like any great, particularly small museum, when you step through the door, you feel as though you're walking in the steps of giants, of great people who walked through that same door, who did great things for this country. So I do. I can't recommend the Susan B. Anthony House highly enough. Our second proclamation tonight recognizes Meals for March. March for Meals. Let me get it right. March for Meals. March for Meals celebrates Meals on Wheels, and each March we recognize Meals on Wheels. Today, actually, I had the opportunity to work with Meals on Wheels to deliver meals along with a Meals on Wheels volunteer to a number of Brighton and Rochester residents. Just a few data points on the Meals on Wheels program here in the area. Currently, there are 768 Monroe County residents being served by the Meals on Wheels program, and 67 of those residents live in Brighton. And there are 15 more Brighton residents on a wait list waiting for additional subsidized funding. Meals on Wheels is a great volunteer opportunity. And for anyone who might be interested in volunteering, I'm not going to go through all of the particulars right now, but for people who are interested in volunteering in the Meals on Wheels program, or anybody who is or thinks they might be, or thinks they know someone who is or might be eligible for Meals on Wheels assistance, please call my assistant, Bridget Monroe, at 784-5252. She'll be able to share some additional information with you. Basically, Meals on Wheels recipients must be unable or have difficulty in shopping and or preparing food. But Meals on Wheels is much more than just a food delivery service. It's a lifeline. Many of these people, as you can imagine, are more or less homebound. And therefore, having a Meals on Wheels volunteer come by several days a week really is a window to the world. It's another set of eyes to check in on them, to see how they're doing. So Meals on Wheels really provides a wide range of services for people here in Brighton and throughout the area that are indeed in need. It is a great opportunity to help. And I'll read this proclamation, which I also presented this morning when I went out on my volunteer run. Whereas Meals on Wheels is an invaluable resource to elderly residents whose struggle to meet their basic needs is alleviated with the delivery of nutritious food and a bright smile at their front door. Whereas research shows that Meals on Wheels significantly improves recipients' diet quality, reduces food insecurity, and improves quality of life, making them healthier, happier, and able to stay at home. And whereas volunteers are the backbone of Meals on Wheels, faithfully delivering hot and cold meals to vulnerable older adults who may otherwise go hungry. And whereas Meals on Wheels inspires unwavering, committed, and consistent volunteers who provide value beyond meal delivery itself. And the annual March for Meals campaign reminds us of the importance of giving back, supporting others, and caring for our community. Whereas created in 1972 through the Older Americans Act nationally, Meals on Wheels currently serves 2.8 million seniors each year across the country. And at a time when inflation has increased food costs, the program is ever more important to the seniors they serve. And whereas today we thank UR Medicine Home Care's Meals on Wheels program and the numerous volunteers who help seniors age in place and build bridges across generations. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, on behalf of the members of Brighton Town Council, do hereby recognize March for Meals with Meals on Wheels and thank everyone involved for their steadfast support of our senior neighbors and their key contribution to strengthening community. And this proclamation is signed this 8th day of March, 2023. Thank you to all the Meals on Wheels volunteers, and take them up on the offer. They need our help. Okay. We'll now begin the open forum portion of the meeting. We hold that open forum at the start of every Brighton Town Board meeting. The open forum is an opportunity to address the town board concerning any matter relating to the town, whether or not it relates to an item on our agenda this evening. Now, I will say, if you would like to speak to the public hearing on the proposed Quickly's incentive zoning project at the corner of Monroe and Elmwood Avenue in the 12 Corners, and would like your remarks included in the record of that hearing, I would encourage you to wait until I call that hearing in just a couple of minutes. If you're here in person and would like to speak during the open forum, or when we get to that hearing, simply raise your hand so we can recognize you. If you're participating in the meeting remotely and you wish to speak during the open forum, or again, during the public hearing, you must first join the meeting on Zoom. And as I mentioned previously, there are detailed instructions for doing so on the town's webpage. If you do that, you'll be admitted from the Zoom waiting room by the host to speak if you use the Zoom raised hand function. Now, I ask all speakers during the open forum, whether in person or remote, if you would please state your name and address. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. I will give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. We may not be able to answer questions that you may ask, particularly if your question relates to a matter that's not on our agenda this evening. But our goal here tonight and at each open forum is to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with the board and for us to be able to listen to your words. Therefore, please direct your remarks to the town board and not to the room or other speakers. Please refrain from personal attacks and from outbursts of any kind during the open forum, out of respect for the speakers and out of respect for the time of everyone that's here tonight. So we'll now begin the open forum. Is there anyone here in the room tonight that would like to address the board during the open forum? Judy?
Judy Schwartz, 179 Ashbourne Road. I'm here just to tell you about a very important program that Interfaith Impact of Rochester is presenting on March 19th, 2 o'clock on Zoom. It's entitled Affordable Housing, a Human Right, How Are We Doing? And our presenters are Jerome Underwood, who's President and CEO of Action for a Better Community, Robin Wilt, who's a real estate broker, and Riddhi Singh, who's with Housing for All. I hope you're interested in coming. I mean, how do you get along if you don't have a house or you live in a place with broken appliances and no heat? And many in our community are unfortunately faced with situations like that. So it's an important program. If you want to attend, merely email me and I will send you the link for the Zoom. It's Judy Schwartz, 179 @gmail.com, and it's open to everyone, so I do hope you'll give it some thought. It's a Sunday afternoon, March 19th at 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Judy, while I have you there,
Yes.
I know during COVID, I've missed the traditional Brighton Neighbors United potluck.
Right. Yeah. I have had, I will admit, I've had computer problems. On my third computer in less than, I don't know how many months. Unfortunately, I have lost my distribution lists. I have, just for my neighborhood, 350 names to put back in. I do have lists of people, though, who have attended, but I've sort of asked people, over this time, and people are still hesitant, and I thought, for the amount we have to pay, which is really steep, and that's something we need to consider, because it's very expensive for us to, we don't make that kind of money. I mean, $5 a person doesn't cover it. So that's a big issue too. And so to make it worth it, we really have to have enough people, so I'm hoping maybe next March things will be better. It's nothing, we haven't forgotten by any means. It's just, you wear a mask, I usually wear a mask when I go into a store, how do you eat? with men, and we're pretty close. We're not distanced, So it's there, and we haven't forgotten it.
Good.
It's just still the circumstances. Thanks for asking.
It's a wonderful event, and I'll really look forward to it coming back. Thank you for speaking, Judy. Thank you for telling us about that event on the 19th. Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during the open forum? I do not see anybody on Zoom either. So if there is nobody else,
Bill, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Before we start the public hearing, though, and we do have the incentive zoning public hearing, but I want to update the community on another matter. I want to update the community on the Whole Foods litigation. As most of you know, over the past several years, there have been a myriad of lawsuits brought to try to block the development of the proposed Whole Foods Plaza, despite the well-documented benefits that the project will bring to the Brighton and Greater Rochester communities, including hundreds of thousands of dollars of property tax revenues each year. Those property tax revenues will ease the burden of property taxes on residential taxpayers. Other benefits include improved supermarket competition, new employment opportunities, and I would note new employment opportunities on a major transit line providing access to people from throughout the community. Benefits including the amenities provided by the developer to the community, including the Auburn Trail that was built from the City of Rochester line near Highland Avenue to the Pittsford Town line east of Clover Street, a distance of about 2 miles, as well as other infrastructure and traffic safety improvements in the Monroe Avenue corridor. Each of those lawsuits, and I used the word a myriad, there have been a lot of them, have been won by the town or the developer of the project up to this point, although project opponents, whose legal fees have been funded by Wegmans in an attempt to block competition from Whole Foods in the Rochester market, have appealed some of those decisions rendered against them. But today, and this is the reason I want to update the community, today, Monroe County Supreme Court Justice, the Honorable Scott Odorizzi, dismissed the final 2 claims being made against the project. I'm not going to get into the details of the decision. It's a 30-page long decision brought by 3 different entities, ostensibly different entities, but each one of them, again, appears to be funded by Wegmans. But I can say that I'm very happy with the decision that Judge Odorizzi issued today. I'm happy for town staff, past and present, who have put their heart and soul into their work in general and into this project and its review and details in particular. No other town project has ever been so thoroughly scrutinized, including projects that are much larger than this one. No other project has been more thoroughly scrutinized, with numerous public hearings, detailed environmental review, and as we've seen from these decisions, a scrupulous attention to compliance with the law. In particular, today's decision repeatedly references the credibility of trial testimony, and I want to particularly note that the decision refers to the credibility of the testimony from my predecessor as supervisor, Sandy Frankel. It also addresses the severe credibility issues that Judge Odorizzi attached. And he notes this in footnote 2 to this decision. He attached severe credibility issues to the paid lobbyist hired by Wegmans, Mr. Jacobson. As happy as I am for our staff, I'm even happier for the Brighton community. This redevelopment project is fully consistent with contemporary smart growth urban planning techniques, redeveloping commercial land accessible by a variety of transportation modes, particularly including pedestrian and bicycle access. This project contains not just Whole Foods, but several other buildings with a variety of other important activities, including an urgent care, Fidelity Financial, Starbucks, Jersey Mike's Subs, and others. In their lawsuits, the groups funded by Wegmans have tried to block development of each of these properties in one way or another, and in each case, they have now been turned back by the court. This project finally brought us the Auburn Trail, as I mentioned, running from Highland Avenue to the Pittsford Town Line, where it then connects, as you go through Pittsford and beyond, to the Erie Canal Trail and into the Finger Lakes region. That trail was built by developers of the project at no cost to Brighton taxpayers. The project amenities to the project also implemented important safety and mobility related recommendations of the town's active transportation plan and the Monroe Avenue charrette plan, again, at no cost to Brighton taxpayers. The Whole Foods will bring new competition for grocery shoppers, and along with the other businesses in the plaza, will bring employment opportunities and economic synergies along the Monroe Avenue corridor. Finally, let me address, again, the hundreds of thousands of dollars annually in property taxes this project will generate. Those property taxes will provide additional support for town and county operations and the Brighton Central School District, thereby helping reduce the pressure on residential taxpayers to support those operations. Again, the Wegmans paid lobbyist repeated many falsehoods about the project over the last several years, but none of his falsehoods were more pernicious than his claim, made in his role as a paid lobbyist for Wegmans, that there was some special deal on taxes for this project. I want to be absolutely clear, because far too many of you have heard this far too many times, but I want to make sure every Brighton resident knows there is no special deal on taxes relating to this project. Somebody who told you there was is not telling you the truth. Now, ironically, the Wegmans chain received significant tax incentives from Comida on several of their projects over the years. But the Whole Foods project will pay 100% full taxes based on the full assessed value of the property as determined independently by the town assessor every single year. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenues every single year. I also want to thank my colleagues on the town board who have allowed the detailed review of this project through a very public and open process. And when that public review was completed, made the decision to support the project and supported the expense to defend their decision and, more importantly, defend the work done by town staff against a multi-billion-dollar organization trying to stand in the way of competition. You can be proud of yourselves tonight because you've stood strong and brought a good result for the residents of the town of Brighton. Thank you. All right, public hearing. Tonight we have one public hearing for the incentive zoning application by PEM, P-E-M-M LLC for a proposed Quicklies at 1950 through 1966 Monroe Avenue. That's at the corner of Elmwood and Monroe in the 12 Corners area. This is a public hearing that was opened 2 meetings ago, and it has been held open at this time. The town clerk confirmed at that time that legal notice had been given on this project, and I declare then that the public hearing is once again open. In a moment, I will ask for anyone who wants to add their comments to the record, but we have the project sponsor here tonight again, and I will first give counsel for the public sponsor who did make a presentation at the first meeting an opportunity to make an additional presentation for the record. Mr. Goldman?
Supervisor Maley. If I may just make some preliminary comments.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
And my apologies, Mr. Goldman, for stepping on your toes. But I did want to just point out to the board, what you have before you this evening is a proposed incentive zoning resolution that has been prepared by town staff. And this project before you has been before you several times already. The resolution, you will note in the first paragraph, makes reference to an application by Mr. Goldman dated November 1st, 2022. Makes reference to a concept plan, which is a single sheet sort of layout plan showing the site overall. Makes reference to a 14-page design package, a sign package, and a short environmental assessment form, all of which this board received and filed as part of the record on November 9th, 2022, when you first saw this application and referred it to the planning board for its review after you determined that it was worthy of further consideration. The process went forward, as you know, with the planning board reviewing that and coming back with an advisory report, which is also attached to the packet tonight. And this board then set these public hearings. The proposal, if approved by this board tonight, will go back to the planning board for site plan review. So there will be additional public hearings on that site plan review and on the site plan approval process. So I just wanted to put that in. We do have Mr. Goldman here, along with Lou Terragnoli from PEM, who is Quickly's. I will turn it over to Jerry at this time. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Ken. Jerry, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As often I'm accused by my engineers and architects who work with me. Mr. Gordon has pretty much preempted everything that I intended to say. I typically start with where we've been and where we're going, and I think Ken's done an outstanding job with that. Just to note that we do have with us this evening boards which depict part of what Ken had referenced. This is our concept plan, which was presented in full at the February meeting. In addition, we have elevation drawings, part of our 14-page set, which depict the site from various perspectives. And as Ken pointed out, we have worked extensively with the town. We've met with the Town Board Public Works Committee, the Planning Board, and others relative to this. And we really have no additional comments to make and would be available to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you very much. Ken, anything else you'd like to say before we open it to?
I don't know if there's any questions that the board members have for the project sponsor. I have one of my own, but I want to defer to the board members first.
Well, let me first see if there's anybody here in the audience with any comments or any questions. I don't see anybody that has joined us on Zoom, but people may. So I'll ask members of the public that are here in the room, any questions or comments would anybody like to address to tonight's public hearing? Hearing none, then I'll go back to you, Ken, and then to the board.
Thank you. Mr. Goldman, if you would, could you talk a little bit about what the hours of operation are anticipated to be for Quickly's? Or maybe that's a question for Mr. Terragnoli.
I'll attempt that, and if I misspeak, Mr. Terragnoli will definitely push me out of the way or kick me. But the property is located in the BF1 zoning district, and the BF1 zoning district does allow 4 hours of operation from 6 a.m. until midnight. We are proposed to have those hours. The typical hours for a location such as this are 5 a.m. until midnight, the town code does provide an ability for us to make a request for a special permit from the town planning board as a part of site plan review at this location. I will state that we believe that at this location, given its location in the commercial core and adjacent to the school use and everything else, that the 5 o'clock hour could very well be appropriate, but that is something for the planning board to make final determination on.
And I just want to make sure that we're of the same understanding on this, Mr. Goldman, that the incentives that you've asked for that are part of the resolution tonight do not include extended hours. Is that your understanding?
That's correct. And the incentive zoning itself does not address hours of operation at all. To that extent, consistent with the normal town process, the planning board can consider a conditional use permit for the additional hour if we are to make application in that regard.
And the resolution does provide for the possibility of the project sponsor making application to the planning board for a conditional use permit, or even to the zoning board of appeals for a variance, to the extent that they don't run afoul of the incentives and amenities that are the core of this proposal being proposed and being reviewed tonight.
I concur with that understanding.
The 5 a.m. To midnight ultimately is what it sounds like the applicant will be looking for. Just curious if all deliveries will occur during those hours as well.
That I will defer to Lou on.
I could say all deliveries for the store would happen during those hours. We can't control the fuel deliveries because it's a third-party company, much like the other food deliveries. And when they get a signal that the facility is running low on fuel, it goes to that third party. They'll be sending out a truck, and it could be with other of our locations or our competitors' locations, and they put it on the same route. I can tell you from a similar property when, and I videotaped it, when this truck is on the site, it's on the site for less than 15 minutes. The truck is off. It is not running. We could have the same conversation standing right next to the truck. There's absolutely no noise from that truck while that fuel is being put in the ground.
Just to be clear, though, the BF1 district regulations restrict hours of operation, which include deliveries, to 6 a.m. to midnight. So if you're anticipating that there may be deliveries at hours other than 6 a.m. to midnight, even if it's just fuel deliveries, that is something that you will need to address with the planning board in your conditional use permit application. And my recommendation is you make it very clear that perhaps what you're looking for is approval for 24-hour delivery, since you can't control when that fuel truck shows up. I just don't want you to get caught or the town to be caught in a bad position.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification.
I do have a couple of sort of follow-up questions to that point. And I know every location is likely to be different, but do you have any expectation as to how frequently fuel would be delivered at this site?
Minimum of 2, maximum of 3 deliveries per week.
A question then that I have for you, Ken, and you may or may not know the answer. BF1 district, are there any other businesses in the BF1 district, and in particular in the BF1 district along Monroe Avenue, that have received approval from the zoning board or elsewhere for extended hours, and what are the arrangements? Because there's at least one other gas station in BF1 currently operating today, and what is their arrangement vis-a-vis fuel delivery, if you know?
I don't know, and I don't know whether there are others, but that would be an issue for the planning board and beyond this board's jurisdiction at this point in time. It's not being asked as an incentive. I don't think you need to consider hours of operation. I think that what the developer is asking for tonight is approval of their incentives, which do not have anything to do with hours of operation. But those issues will be issues that the planning board will be considering when and if the project sponsor makes an application for a conditional use permit. And then we'll have somebody knowledgeable about those matters. Well, it would be Jason Haremza, who's the executive secretary for the planning board, who will be sitting there. So.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members or staff? Chief, from a law enforcement perspective.
The only thing I was going to say was, in my 20-plus years here, and it's a considerable amount of time working the night shift, I don't think we've ever received any complaints from fuel trucks. Garbage trucks, different story. We do receive complaints on those.
Right, and I think you might have said this, the fuel trucks don't back up, so there's no backup alarms going off, right? They pull in,
They pull in, the
unload.
truck is off, and then they go out the other.
and then they keep going, so
Yeah.
they're not backing up.
Yes.
Ken, those are things that the
All
planning board
board
could
issues,
incorporate into any.
and they will.
Law enforcement issues with hours of operation?
No, I don't think so. There's not many 24-hour businesses left in Brighton. I mean, I would love to see a 24-hour business just for the police officers to be able to stop. I can tell you that for sure. CVS is the only 24-hour business that I'm aware of on the avenue anymore, but really nothing. Looks like a good plan.
Board members, any questions?
Just a quick question, Jerry. If you can just give us a rundown as to where we are with the planning board application. There's a conditional use permit application that's pending. When do we anticipate that that will go before the planning board?
We anticipate that we will be doing a full planning board application and presenting it to the planning board as soon as we have approval here. We have a lot of the engineering work done already. Possibility that we would make the application deadline later this month for the meeting in April. We can make an application for site plan approval and conditional use permit if we opt to do that. The hours of operations issues are conditional use permit matters before the board.
Thank you.
One more matter, just because I think that we've talked about this before, and because I've been at every board meeting that this project has been presented at, I am a little bit fuzzy as to whether it's before this board that we've had this discussion. Can you, Mr. Goldman or Mr. Terragnoli, talk a little bit about the products that will be for sale in the convenience store, and whether you can confirm for us your understanding of the town's restrictions as to the sale of certain products from that store?
I'll preface the comments by saying that the town does have a regime in place relative to restrictions on vaping and with regard to cannabis. I'm not aware of any other restrictions with regard to certain items, but with that introduction, Lou, if you want to
Sure.
address.
Yes, let me confirm, we are aware of the restrictions, and there'll be no ask for any vaping or any items like that. Specifically, we're looking at snack items, cold, hot beverages, We're looking at a couple local companies to maybe to have some other fresh food products at the location. So basically, it would be mostly snack items, hot and cold beverages.
Do you know whether, and I don't even know if you're seeking a state liquor license for this location, but do you know whether your state liquor license, if you are seeking one, will allow for the sale of beer from this location given its proximity to 12 Corners Middle School?
We would be seeking that type of license for those products.
Do you know whether the State Liquor Authority would grant it given its proximity to 12 Corners Middle School?
Given our record with them, I'd be surprised if they wouldn't, but
I believe, although I'm not totally sure, and I'm not even sure how it's branded anymore. It was a Hess, and then it was a Speedway, and I don't know if they have rebranded it on the corner of Elmwood and South Clinton, which is immediately adjacent to McQuaid. That I believe that they have approval for liquor sales at that location.
Beer sales.
Beer, I'm sorry.
Not liquor.
Not.
I would like to add with regard to our internal training for the sale of any age-restricted product, we have zero tolerance from our employees for any sale. It probably would result in a termination if they did not seek the proper identification and ensure that the age-restricted product was sold to someone that is above the age for that. So,
and just to make the record even clearer, when you talk about a zero tolerance, I believe it is Quickly's policy that everyone, regardless of age, must show proof of age.
that is correct. That is correct.
Probably the best day of my life when I get proof, so it's always a good.
I'm a frequent customer at your Quickly's in Honey Falls, so I know this.
And of course, our law enforcement does engage in their own spot checking activities to make sure.
That's all I had.
Thanks, Ken. Any other questions or comments from anybody here in the room? From anybody on Zoom? I don't see anybody on Zoom. Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed. And you have a motion in your packet, and I would invite a motion. Christine?
Move that in the matter of seeking, in the matter of the incentive zoning application by PEM LLC for Quickly's at 1950-1966 Monroe Avenue, we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
And if I could just make this one correction, I forgot to ask for this correction to the agenda. The applicant here actually is not PEM LLC. The applicant here is actually 1950-1966 Monroe Avenue LLC.
And the resolution is accurate in that regard.
It is.
Yeah, but thank you for identifying that. 1950-1966 Monroe Avenue LLC. But yes,
With that friendly correction,
and the resolution is correct in that regard. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by members of the town board? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and good luck.
Good evening.
Next, matters of communication. Can I have a motion to receive and file those communications?
So moved.
Second,
We have two items tonight. One, the kind we always love to get, from a resident who notes that she inadvertently double paid her tax bill. She was traveling, double paid her tax bill. And Peggy Lull in the town clerk's office, in Dan's office, helped her out. I'll read the whole thing. It's addressed to Daniel Amon, receiver. While traveling, I inadvertently paid 2 tax bills in February. Appreciation for Peggy Lull's assistance. She was, and these words are underlined, exceptional, professional, kind, and responsive. Thank you for your service and also for Peggy Lull's help. Sincerely, Eileen Marin Keating. Thank you, Ms. Keating. Thank you, Peggy. So that's one of the letters, and we also received correspondence from the chief advising us that his secretary, Karen Kelly, will be resigning from the department effective March 11th. She's been with the department and working with the chief since 2021. And we're sorry to see Karen go. We wish her well. So we have those 2 items of communication. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on any of those? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Ken, we don't need to take any action as a board to approve or? No.
No.
Committee reports. We'll start with community services. Christine, do you have the?
Yes, I'm filling
Great.
in this evening, reporting out for Councilmember Wilt. Community Services Committee has not met since the last town board meeting. However, there are some brief updates from the Recreation Department and the Parks Department. The most exciting update is the long-awaited news of summer playground camp registration opening. It opens to Brighton residents only on Tuesday, March 28th at 9 a.m. And if slots remain after that flurry of registration, non-residents may begin to register on, let me be sure I've got the right date here, May 2nd. And full details on the playground camps are available online at www.townofbrighton.org/rec. Another highlight from community services, the Brighton Farmers Market returned last Sunday indoors at the Brookside Recreation Center. It will run indoors through April 2nd from 10 a.m. to noon, and then it returns for outdoor shopping on April 16th, running from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the Brighton High School parking lot. Numerous other activities that are going on at Brighton Rec. You can check out that website for more information. Sign up, participate, they're great. I just took the AARP Smart Driver course, completed it today. I am a smart driver now, hosted at Brighton Rec, presented by AARP. Highly recommend it. All right. Next community services meeting is Wednesday, March 15th at 9:30 at the Brookside Recreation Center, and community members are welcome to attend. Please enter via the Winton Road entrance. Forgive me, I jumped over the parks report. I will stay brief with that as well. As you know, we have many wonderful parks. Matt Beeman and his team are busy keeping them tidied up after the windstorm of the past couple of weeks, so that has taken a great deal of their time. Some important things of note, the town park playground is slated to be replaced as part of the 2023 CIP requests, so they're beginning their thinking about that and exploring purchasing. The lodge at Town Park was closed during the week of February 13th to complete extensive maintenance. Forgive me, I want to find the right one here. In Buckland Park, the lodge will be closed down during a week this month to complete extensive maintenance. I don't have specific dates for that, but please be aware that the lodge will be closed for 1 week for maintenance. At Buckland Farmhouse, electrical voltage issues at the house have been repaired. I believe there may have been some supernatural assistance with that repair. Long story to be reported one day by our town historian, perhaps. And the signage at, forgive me, there's a lot on this list. They do a lot. I'm giving the highlights, though. One of the parks had recent signage placed to clarify park access, and I wanted to be sure to highlight that. And it's not leaping out at me at the moment. Oh, Persimmon Park, forgive me. Persimmon Park, park signs were posted with park hours. Neighbors were inquiring about appropriate times for people to be enjoying Persimmon Park, and so the hours are now posted. And that is all. So come see us on Wednesday, March 15th.
Thank you, Christine. Jason, oh, did you have a question, Chris? I just.
March 15th for the community services.
Yes.
Okay.
Jason, Finance.
Yes, the Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Wednesday, March 1st. Each of the items that were discussed in committee appear on tonight's agenda in town board and will be voted on. Our next meeting will take place on Wednesday, March 15th. We meet at 8:30 in the morning here in the main auditorium at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks very much. Chris, Public Safety?
Bill, the Public Safety Committee meets monthly, and our next meeting is March the 14th at 8:00 a.m., and the public is invited to attend.
Great. And Public Works, Christine?
Similarly brief. Public Works has not met since the last town board meeting. Next meeting is March 14th at 9 a.m. following Public Safety. Of note, however, Mike Guyon, Commissioner of Public Works and Superintendent of Highways, will no longer be joining us at those meetings as he had the nerve to retire just this past week. So we thank him for his many, many years of service and leadership and guidance, and we wish him well in his retirement, and we'll miss him.
Ken, did you want to?
I just wanted to point out that I believe that Ms. Gretchen Paxson from the DPW office will be attending to make sure that minutes are taken.
Yes.
And I don't know who, if anyone else from DPW or Highway is planning to attend, but if there is somebody who you need, you should.
We know how to find them. Yes.
Well,
Or let the supervisor know, or let me know, and we'll make sure the message is delivered.
The intent, given we know with Mike's retirement, we're not as fully staffed as we'd like to be. The intent is really to make sure that we want to get the input from senior staff, but we don't want them to be at meetings that aren't going to be relevant to their workflow. So if there's particular items, if there's a sewer-related issue, for example, we might want to have Steve Zimmer at the meeting. If there's some kind of planning project issue, we might want to have Everett or someone else. So.
And that's a good reminder, too, for the community. If you have a Public Works matter that you want addressed by the committee, please submit it to me or any of the members of the committee, the supervisor or Councilmember Werner, or send it to the Public Works Department. And that information can be found online.
Yep, thanks.
For the good reminder.
Thanks, Christine. New business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $703,606.27. Notable claims include to the Bobcat Company in the amount of $64,912.41, representing payment for new sidewalk tractor with a snowblower. Also to Civic Plus Inc. in the amount of $13,881.98, representing payment for 2023 annual website hosting. Also to NCH Corporation in the amount of $4,140.82, representing payment for water tower boiler treatment and testing. Also to Brighton Volunteer Ambulance in the amount of $330,000, representing payment for the 2023 contract, less the fuel retainage per the town board approved agreement for net payment. And finally, to the U.S. Postmaster in the amount of $3,700 $686.65, representing payment for postage for the spring 2023 town newsletter. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Chris?
Bill, the next item is to authorize the supervisor to enter into a contract with Stantec Consulting Services in an amount not to exceed $17,132 for a speed reduction study and authorize the Finance Department to make the necessary budget amendments for the study. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
We've talked about this, but I think it's worthy of a little bit more discussion. For years, the town of Brighton worked to try to get the right to reduce speed limits on town streets, particularly streets through our neighborhoods, near our schools. 30 miles an hour, and we know it, far too many people drive above whatever the posted speed limit is just too fast. But state law didn't allow us to establish a town-wide speed limit below that. So now that's changed, and we have that power. But as part of doing that, we have to conduct this study that will justify it. And after a lot of discussion, we made a decision to look at not only the neighborhood streets, but also a couple of the larger streets in town that are adjacent to schools, namely French Road and North Landing School. French Road, of course, French Road Elementary School, North Landing Road, the Indian Landing School, part of the Penfield School District. So this will cover that contract with Stantec to do the necessary work required by law. Ken, anything else to add to that? All right.
I think you covered it very well.
We have a motion from Chris, seconded by Christine. Any further discussion? You sounded surprised that I covered it so well.
Actually did a good job.
We have a motion and a second. Dan, if you would call the roll, please.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Christine, the next item. Sorry to catch you there in mid-sneeze.
Coughing, but just a little dry throat. The next item seeks to authorize the supervisor to enter into a contract with Ravi Engineering in an amount not to exceed $60,000 for design services of the Chelmsford Lane culvert. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
And again, this is something we've talked about. As you'll remember, Mike Guyon advised us that there had been, after some of the snow melt and rain, more rain than snow that fell, we became aware of the fact that there was sort of a bit of a sinkhole, a washout there by the culvert. There was concern as to the integrity of that bridge for traffic, so we immediately closed that little stretch of Chelmsford Lane to vehicular traffic. This study will allow us to get a design for the repair of that culvert, but as we've discussed, this will also allow us to go further, and really I think it's important to say, at the encouragement of Councilmember Corrado, we're going to look at the potential for turning this strictly into a bicycle pedestrian access point. So this study with Ravi Engineering will I think, broadly enable us to both look at how this this stretch might be used in the future, whether it would be vehicular or whether it would be a bicycle pedestrian access point. And I think that's a great opportunity to see what the future looks like at that location. So thank you for making that suggestion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jason,
Yes.
the next item.
The next matter seeks to approve 2022 budget transfers and appropriations and the related reappropriations to the 2023 budget for approved grants and other projects not yet completed. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
Paula, anything you would like to summarize on these?
We have a complete list of several of our capital projects, which is the bulk of these reappropriations. Some of the capital projects represent differences on the list that's attached, differences remaining from what we've spent. They've taken more than 1 year, so we reappropriate the differences from what is spent. There's one new project on there, which is our French Road Bridge over Allens Creek Road. That is an appropriation which was approved by town board. The other small changes on there were just some final accounts that needed to be adjusted for very small amounts. So this should be the final cleanup for our 22 into 23 fiscal years for budget numbers.
Thanks, Paula. Any discussion on any of those? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Last, Christine.
Yes. The last matter seeks to set a public hearing for the removal of the following trees. One 46-inch silver maple at 1393 Clover Street on the Roland Parkway side. One 52-inch silver maple at 90 Maywood Drive. One 45-inch silver maple at 43 Model Lane. One 45-inch silver maple at 72 North Landing Road. One 32-inch locust at 120 Glen Ellen Way. One 30-inch sugar maple at 220 Thackeray Road, and one 37-inch sugar maple at 195 Wilshire Road. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
And to be clear, the public hearing will be 2 weeks from today.
No, actually,
it's
it's
not.
April 12th.
April 12th.
2 meetings.
Be 2 meetings from today.
From today, right.
To be extra clear, April 12th, 2 meetings from today.
Comments? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. I have no additional matters of the supervisor, matters of the town attorney.
Yes, thank you, Bill. I just want to take a few moments to just go back and talk a little bit about the Whole Foods decision today. And really, I just want to take a moment to let the community know about the tremendous effort that a lot of people put into getting this wonderful result. First and foremost, I want to again thank Judge Odorizzi and his staff, Leslie Swift, his law clerk, his entire court staff, from the deputy to the stenographer to the clerks in the court, who were patient, who were always paying attention in a very long and difficult trial. This trial lasted approximately 7 weeks. It was a long trial. It took a lot of resources, and the court really accommodated all the parties and took this matter very seriously, to the great benefit of all of us. And I think it really heartens me, and it should hearten our residents about the good work that our justice system does. But I also want to talk a little bit about our team. And by our team, I mean all of our team who was involved in this result. We have a number of wonderfully dedicated public servants here in the town of Brighton. I don't have to tell all of you that, you know that, but I want to repeat it for the community's benefit. And several of those were key witnesses at trial, starting with our supervisor, Bill Maley, who did a wonderful job testifying and explaining the process that this board went through in approving this project. His immediate predecessor, who Bill, you talked about earlier, Sandy Frankel, who was specifically called out by the judge in his decision as being an incredibly credible witness, and also in acknowledging her tremendous accomplishment during her administration of establishing over 500 acres of parkland for the town.
Forward thinking was the term the judge used.
He used several complimentary terms, but Supervisor Frankel was a very strong, very credible, and very important witness for the town. Ramsey Boehner, our former town associate planner, who carried the burden of reviewing all aspects of this project and was a very important and powerful witness for the town. Tim Keefe, our former Commissioner of Public Works, Bill Price, our Planning Board Chair, Matt Beeman, our Parks Superintendent. All of them did a great job testifying, and I think that it really had an impact on the judge. The judge believed our witnesses because they came as public servants. They came as truth tellers who had nothing but the public interest in heart. And that showed, and that was clear from their testimony, and I think it rang true with the judge. I also want to compliment and thank, and I can't do this enough, our lead trial counsel, John Mancuso. John was the maestro of this entire defense of what the town did here in terms of approving this project, and he really masterfully handled trial tactics, strategy, witnesses, legal theories, legal arguments, the facts, thousands of exhibits. He did it with the assistance of his very competent colleagues, Lauren Barron and Shannon O'Connor, who were at trial daily with him to assist him. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention the great team from Woods Oviatt. Warren Rosenbaum led that team of attorneys in defending this project, along with his colleagues Aaron Elmuji, John Nutter, and of course Jerry Goldman, who was in court every day. And in addition, the legal work done by David Rothenberg and Michael Rothenberg was stellar. They handled a number of witnesses, a number of the important arguments and positions, all of which contributed to what we saw today as a right result for the town, a right result for the project sponsor, a right result for the residents, and I'm hoping, and maybe it's beyond hope, but I'm hoping that Wegmans now will set this aside and will allow this competition to come into town and will accept the fact that it's time to move on and that they will not take an appeal from the judge's decision, because the judge very clearly explained his position both on the legal issues and on the facts, and really enough is enough. And we ought to move on and look forward to the grand opening of the Whole Foods store, which I think we expect in the next several months. So thank you. That's what I wanted to report.
Thanks, Ken. You left out one very important part of that team. Ken Gordon, town attorney, who just, you not only carrying a significant workload relating to that trial, but maintaining your normal workload here, being accessible for the ongoing legal needs of the town and of town staff, was a strain on you. You know, John Mancuso and his team, you mentioned the team that worked for the developers, the Rothenbergs and the Woods Oviatt team, but your work And you're, you know, for all the same reasons that we chose to hire you as town attorney, all those, well, when we had first hired you as attorney to the town and later as town attorney, we, the legal experience you have, but also the governmental experience that you had as a member of the town board, I just don't think you can underestimate how important the work that you did. It was a great team. John was the maestro, as you put it, but your role was there every single day, and it was, as you said, the result was great. We can only hope. I'm not encouraged by social media that I saw that suggests that they are going to appeal, but I do. You know, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough resources have been spent. Everyone had their day in court. The truth was told, and the judge perceptively identified the credible witnesses and the non-credible witnesses. And so thank you for that representation.
Thank you, Bill.
Matters of the town clerk.
I just want to take a moment and acknowledge a happy and sad day, the lives of Syracuse alumni and the community everywhere, because James Arthur Boeheim Jr. has retired today. And it was a brutal reality. Everyone knew was coming. Time, you know, Father Time passes no one by. But a salute to one of the greatest alumni of my university. No one more dedicated to the university and the city of Syracuse and the Syracuse area. I mean, through the Jim and Julie Boeheim Foundation have done and will continue to do just phenomenal work in helping so many people in the area. So, but hats off to Coach, and congrats to Red Autry as the new head coach. Looking forward to again another Syracuse legend. So continuing. So.
Thanks, Dan, and you know, it was mentioned before, but I want to go back just for a moment, and we acknowledged him at our last board meeting, but right in this room on last Friday when, you know, Mike Guyon's last day. The love, the affection that was in the room that day, and the respect for the work that Mike did. He was second to none. And, you know, sure enough, the next morning, Saturday morning, we had, you know, some weather issues, and there he was. You know, I called him early on the phone. He was right there, as responsive as ever. So, Mike, we're going to miss you. Thank you. Matters of the town board.
Nothing further?
Nothing further.
Then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a matter relating to the employment of a particular person?
So moved. Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. I don't anticipate we'll be coming back out into public session. I do want to note one more thing. The next town board meeting, which will be Wednesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. here, will also be the State of the Town message that I'll be giving that evening. So thanks everybody for being here tonight. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, Allie and Heather. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully, and we'll see the rest of you in 2 weeks. Have a great evening, everybody.